So the headline is basically, men are hardwired to cheat. And you're like, not so fast, right?
I'm already annoyed and intrigued, which is his whole brand.
He opens with that forbidden knowledge thing, and it's like, why does that always get people fired?
Because if you phrase biology as a moral threat, academics panic like it's a court trial.
But he keeps repeating the same meta point. Science explains, it doesn't endorse.
Yeah, and he uses the paternity uncertainty logic like a crowbar through a wall.
The step-parent-child abuse example was wild, like 100-fold increase, and everyone just nods?
The 100-fold number is so huge, it deserves a sponsor disclaimer.
I actually like that he compared it to oncology. Studying cancer isn't cheering for cancer.
But then he goes full true crime addict mode with infidelity and homicide stats.
And I'm thinking, okay, evolutionary explanation for jealousy, but does it excuse violence?
He explicitly says no, but the vibes still get messy.
What hit me is he treats cheating desire as universal, then asks who controls it behaviorally.
That friend spectrum he had, faithful, struggling cheaters, feels too neat though.
I mean, people are messy, right? Evolutionary pressures don't equal identical outcomes.
Exactly. He's arguing about tendencies, but listeners hear, this is what you are.
Then comes the twist. Women also want sexual variety, just in specific contexts.
Maximally fertile timing and reduced insistence on contraception. He says it like it's a spreadsheet column.
I respect the not Victorian prudes framing, but it's still provocative as hell.
Because it undercuts a lot of cultural storytelling. Culture hates being de-romanticized.
His mate desirability score metaphor is surprisingly understandable.
Yeah, multi-attribute choice, like picking a car, then couples assort on overall value.
And the claim is divorce risk rises when those scores diverge over time.
That's the part where I'm like, okay, but people diverge for a million reasons beyond hormones and status.
True. Emotional growth, resentment incompatibility, not just your score moved.
Also, score makes it sound like matchmaking is an RPG stat screen.
Still, I like the actionable bit. You can improve your attributes, assertiveness, ambition, even elocution.
But he risks sounding like just optimize, which can be toxic too.
He even says he was 42 and could climb to 60 with strategies. Confidence move, honestly.
I want to believe in self-improvement without turning humans into spreadsheets.
Then he pivots hard into paternity uncertainty again, even using gift-giving at weddings.
The Israeli wedding dataset thing is where I start wondering how much is evidence and how much is narrative cohesion.
His logic. Mothers know the genetic link, father's side has uncertainty, so maternal relatives invest more.
It's coherent. But coherent doesn't always mean causal at personal level.
He then uses primates and testicle size as a proxy for sperm competition. Bonobos, chimps, gorillas.
And sperm wars with blockers and killers, he's stacking examples like a Jenga tower of claims.
I did find that sperm viable 72 hours detail interesting because it ties into the whole multi-male proximity idea.
But again, I'm always asking, where's the boundary between adaptation and over-speculation?
He brings up the ideological hero to zero thing. If it supports feminism, he's praised. If not, he's hated.
Honestly, that dynamic is real in every domain. People weaponize conclusions.
Which brings us to masculinity. He blames fear and oversensitivity for men not approaching.
The compliment becomes compliment rape example. Wow, that's a strong caricature, but not totally fictional.
He argues men are too afraid to court and women get frustrated. Where are the bold men?
And then he tells his brother's story, short but bulldog energy, confident approach, instant success.
That story is basically posture, eye contact, and testicles the size of an aura. Very scientific.
The comedic exaggeration is doing heavy lifting. But the underlying point, confidence reads as status, fits his whole framework.
He also says approach is about modulation, like Aristotle's inverted U, and context matters.
Right, and he contrasts it with the undercover video where men swarm a woman while she's alone and vulnerable.
And he says those men think they have a chance even if probability is tiny, like the cost-benefit math is broken in their head.
He ties it to theory of mind and self-awareness, being able to model how you're landing on the other person.
That's actually the part I agree with most. You need empathy plus context reading, not just confidence.
Yeah, because without theory of mind, your boldness becomes harassment really fast.
And then his overconfidence bias example, only the happy customers come to the professor.
So he's arguing we sample the best interactions and assume we're the best.
Okay, pivot to the porn as exaptation thing. He says porn piggybacks on evolved preferences, not that evolution designed porn.
That distinction between adaptation and exaptation is legit. It's like, don't confuse a tool's origin with its current use.
But then he still calls porn a behavioral trap that can lead to addiction.
So net good or net bad, he says unclear, and moderation matters.
I'm torn because moderation advice feels too easy when addiction biology is involved.
Exactly. Some systems don't do well with willpower arguments.
Still, I respect the core promise. Give people a toolkit so they don't treat explanations like endorsements.
Yeah, but the danger is people cherry-pick the biology sentence and ignore the "it's not justification" sentence.
And that's why he says he gets into trouble, because listeners map science onto morality instantly.
So our takeaway for episode 1 is, evolution may explain desire, but ethics and self-control decide behavior.
And also, if your theory of mind is trash, you're not bold, you're just loud.
Loudness is not masculinity. Confident modulation is.
All right, I'm ready for episode 2, because I want to see where he goes next with mate value and the social backlash.
Same. Let's go down the rabbit hole properly next time.
Okay, this was a fun one. Honestly chaotic, but the framework is at least consistent.
Wrap it up here, and we'll pick up the thread in episode 2.
Episode 2 next. We'll dig into the divorce and desirability divergence claims and the backlash mechanics around them. The wildest part is how fast he jumps from biology to toolkit behavior.
Yeah, but he keeps screaming, explain, not justify, and I kind of buy it.
Do you buy it when he says cheating has an evolutionary rationale?
I buy the rationale, not the vibes he assumes people will take from it.
Because people hear evolved and immediately translate it to therefore allowed.
Exactly. Proximate versus ultimate, he even hits that. But listeners still misfire.
The men are hardwired to cheat framing is where the whole fire starts.
And he counters with women having variety desires too, which is fair but spicy.
The maximally fertile equals more cheating line is brutal, though not automatically wrong.
It's testable across cultures, and he treats it like an empirical bullet.
But then he goes full homicide case studies. Suddenly we're in true crime mode.
I love how he uses evolutionary psychology like a flashlight, then acts surprised by darkness.
And the step-parent argument, absent parent wasn't even his best bet.
That 100-fold thing sounded almost propaganda level, but the logic was clean.
Clean logic doesn't mean every number he uses is clean, right?
Totally. But the principle is what matters. Incentives for investment can shift.
That's the part I actually liked. Paternity uncertainty as the villain.
Maternity uncertainty doesn't exist, so asymmetry is basically built in.
Then he drops, most dangerous person a woman meets is her husband, like mic drop.
And you can see why people think it's misogyny, even if the mechanism is paternity rage.
He insists he's not endorsing violence, but the audience isn't a robot.
This is why his forbidden knowledge point is tense too.
He says professors get mad if differences show men outperform, especially in any direction.
I think he exaggerates persecution, but the publish or die incentives are real.
And he uses hygiene and Semmelweis as the poster child for being mocked first.
That story is perfect storytelling, but it's still a rhetorical weapon.
So let's talk about his actual evolution toolkit, not his cancel speed run.
Okay, mate desirability score, like a multi-attribute car, right?
Yes. And I liked that he says traits you can't change aren't a dead end.
He's basically saying do compensatory upgrades, assertiveness, ambition, grooming, skills.
Improve your score from 42 to 60 is a hilarious way to say self-improvement.
But he's not selling optimism, he's selling variance and controllable levers.
The assortative mating bit, people flock by similar mate value over time, was interesting.
And the divergence prediction, like divorce risk rises when scores stop matching.
That's almost like economic matching plus romantic maintenance.
I agree with the direction, but it depends how you measure score without bias.
Yeah, social status as #1 universal female preference is a claim that deserves receipts.
He tries with Ferrari is 99% male owners, and that's more heuristic than proof.
He also gets technical with inclusive fitness and reciprocal altruism, which I love.
Reciprocal altruism makes gift rituals sound like emotional accounting systems.
But then he pivots to masculinity and bold men, and it turns into culture war.
He argues men approaching has been disincentivized by fear of being labeled predatory.
And his theory of mind rant was the key, honestly.
Self-awareness and timing. If you can't read cues, you become socially dangerous.
He compared lecture interruptions and not modulating messages to autism screening tasks.
That analogy is edgy, but the underlying point about cue reading is solid.
Then he brings that street video of women being approached like it's a statistical inevitability.
He says those men think probability 0.001 is still worth it, but empathy says no.
This is where he sounds most like an ethics guy instead of an ideologue.
Yeah, the modulation concept, Aristotle golden mean, felt like a bridge.
The sweet spot between cowardice and rashness for courtship.
And he distinguishes boldness from harassment, which is crucial.
Because bold isn't ignoring boundaries, even if some men wish it was.
He even uses his own brother story. Short dude, bulldog energy wins the girl.
It's a nice revenge fantasy, but I can't pretend it's universal.
Sure, but as narrative, it supports his walk big, communicate well toolkit.
Now, the incel-adjacent advice section, he basically says build the physical baseline too.
Like treadmill and read books, no magic height growth included.
I respect that he didn't oversell, just confidence fixes everything.
Because even he admits traits exist as constraints, then you optimize what you can.
So where do we land? Is his framework empowering or just too easy to weaponize?
Both, unfortunately. People love deterministic explanations more than disciplined outcomes.
He literally warns that people get triggered when science contradicts ideology.
And that's the core tension, ideology as a filter versus science as a mirror.
He says truth exists independently, but social life punishes that belief.
So the toolkit must include humility, not just mate desirability math.
Agreed. Self-control plus theory of mind beats any hardwired slogan.
And that's why this show's takeaway is evolution explains desire. Ethics chooses action.
And also, boldness without modulation is just loudness with consequences.
All right, let's wrap this before we argue about cheating again.
We'll pick up in episode 2 with the divorce and backlash mechanics.
Same, because apparently the social backlash is part of the evolutionary story too.
Exactly. Next time we go deeper into desirability divergence and why people react.
All right, that's it for this episode. Go touch grass, not ideology.
And remember, if you can't read the room, don't speed run into it.
Episode 2 is coming with the spicy divorce claims and the cancel machinery.
Okay, but that mate desirability score thing is actually elegant, annoyingly.
Elegant, yes. Also dangerously close to turning relationships into math homework.
It's math, but messy math, like dating with spreadsheets and vibes.
My issue is the leap from evolution might shape incentives to therefore people behave X.
He's basically saying, don't confuse explanation with endorsement.
And then he spends 40 minutes proving the endorsement people will still infer.
But I genuinely like the toolkit angle. Desire exists, norms exist, choose your lane.
Toolkit for whom, though? People in good faith or people looking for permission slips?
Exactly, because the paternity uncertainty discussion is powerful and people weaponize it fast.
Like domestic violence explanation gets treated as a motivational poster.
Evolution explains causes, not morality, but humans love skipping that step.
Science says, I'm wired like this, so you're not allowed to judge me.
Meanwhile, he's begging, study honestly, don't fear questions.
And the forbidden knowledge framing, does it feel principled or just provocative sometimes?
Both. Because sometimes academics do act like certain topics are radioactive.
But sometimes the backlash is a response to how claims get generalized or published.
Yeah, the classic, the data is provisional, but my certainty is permanent.
Let's talk cheating, though, because he framed it as why desire exists, not why it's good.
And then he flips it. Women also have the evolved desire for variety, situationally.
I buy that women have varied motives, but the maximally fertile claim always feels too neat.
Why neat? Because biology is supposed to be messy, but the narrative sounds crisp.
Because if it's crisp, people will treat it like a cheat code.
Cheater's code. Set calendar to fertility window. Ignore consent and consequences.
The consent part is what gets erased whenever these debates go online.
Also, his assortative mating bit. Couples stay together when desirability scores don't diverge.
That hypothesis might explain some divorces, but it feels like a post hoc umbrella.
Still, divergence is intuitive. One person levels up, the other stalls. Resentment grows.
He calls it divergence, but we call it we stopped dating and started tolerating.
Exactly. Evolutionary language, same breakup soundtrack.
I also liked the compensatory choice framing. People have different baskets of traits.
Yes. Like, you can't change height, but you can improve assertiveness, skill, grooming, status cues.
Careful, though, improve status cues can slide into manipulation advice.
Be hotter is not a strategy. It's a slogan wearing a lab coat.
So what's the ethical version of this toolkit? How do we keep it grounded?
Self-awareness and respect. Like modulation, not desperation with a marketing plan.
Modulation is the right word because he hammered right place, right time.
And then he shows that when someone ignores cues, it's basically probability denial.
Probability is core one, so why not? Classic delusion math.
That's where theory of mind becomes huge. Can you model how you affect someone?
And he connects that to overconfidence bias. Only the successful interactions get reported back.
Translation, bad shots don't come up to tell the professor, I learn nothing.
But I wonder if he overstates how common no self-awareness is.
Maybe. Yet the videos of relentless approaches are real, and they're not subtle.
The beautiful woman walking alone gets approached constantly part. Did that reframe it for you?
Completely. It made boldness look less like romance and more like emotional labor for the woman.
And it reminded me that risk isn't just rejection, it's feeling unsafe.
He even says the male mindset thinks there's a chance, but empathy flips the conclusion.
Though empathy sometimes gets weaponized too. I'm just trying, don't make it complicated.
That's why moderation matters. If you're not reading the room, you're not trying, you're invading.
Okay, now pornography. This is the part I couldn't fully ignore.
Porn as exaptation, piggybacking on evolved visual and sexual variety preferences.
Porn addiction stories are real, but I'm cautious about evolutionary just-so narratives.
He basically says, no ancestral savanna had infinite novelty feeds, so your brain gets hijacked.
And then the modulation caveat shows up again. Maybe not fully evil, but easy to misuse.
Do you think it spices things up is ever safe? Or is that just rationalization?
Safe is a sliding scale, but rationalization is the strongest muscle in everyone's gym.
That's the cleanest line you'll get from me all week.
Look, even if evolution explains preference structures, culture still shapes behavior and consequences.
Exactly. And culture is where ideology enters and people pick the parts that flatter them.
Like when he says, if you support their ideology, you're a hero. If not, you're a villain.
Science as a sports team. Facts only score when they win your argument.
That's the hardest thing, how to keep the method honest when the audience wants confirmation.
So if we steal only one thing from this conversation, what is it?
That explanation is not permission, and you still owe people respect, even if you understand incentives.
And second, build self-awareness like it's a survival skill, not a personality trait.
Because without that, probability becomes cruelty in a trench coat.
All right, next time, divorce machinery and why people react to these ideas the way they do.
Episode 2 should get spicy. Desirability, divergence, backlash loops, and who initiates what.
Stay tuned. And meanwhile, go touch grass, read books, and don't speed run into anyone's boundaries.
We'll see you in episode 2, where the evolutionary story hits the legal and emotional reality.
The Cancelled Professor and the Evolution Toolkit, done for today.
Outro voice. Be curious, be kind, and stop trying to win people like arguments.
All right, wrap it up. Episode 2 is coming with the divorce and backlash mechanics.
The whole cheating isn't justified, it's explained line keeps getting people mad.
Yeah, because people hear explained and their brain swaps in approved.
But it's not even approval. It's like studying cancer to stop it.
Exactly. I'm pro-cancer is the funniest misunderstanding of all time.
What I liked is the toolkit vibe. Desire exists, but behavior is still regulated.
The self-control module idea, like fatty foods versus sumo, felt pretty honest.
And the mate desirability score? Finally, an attempt at making it measurable.
Measurable dating metrics. This is either science or spreadsheet romance.
In fairness, humans already do this mentally. We just call it vibes and trauma.
The controversial part is the claims about evolved sex differences and cheating timing.
Right, because once you say evolution, someone instantly screams determinism.
And determinism is such a lazy straw man. Biology isn't destiny, it's constraints.
I'm also fascinated by the argument that monogamy isn't natural, just common institutions.
Like 85% have monogamy, but biology still contains variety incentives, doesn't contradict it.
That's the part where my brain goes, okay, so stop acting surprised people want variety.
But you can still be moral. Evolutionary explanation doesn't erase vows.
Still, the way it gets communicated matters, because triggering happens fast.
Like if your tone sounds like men cheat, you're already losing the room.
Yet he insists the male desire argument is paired with female desire, which is important.
Yeah, women too have variety desires is a grenade in any ideological room.
The fertility timing claim, maximally fertile cheating, feels testable, not just opinion.
It feels testable, but I still want to know how much measurement noise exists.
Same. But even if the effect sizes are contested, the broad logic isn't crazy.
Humans are creatures with hormones. Shocking, I know.
The paternity uncertainty section was wild, though. Grandparents, gift sizes, all that.
The claim that maternal kin invest more because they know the genetic link, simple but sharp.
And it connects to why step-parents become such a high-risk variable in child abuse.
That absent two biological parents predictor being so huge, yeah, that's the kind of number that sticks.
But we have to be careful. Evolutionary stories can explain patterns and still miss individual context.
Totally. One story about average mechanisms doesn't excuse cruelty in the real world.
If anything, the oncologist study's cancer metaphor is a moral safeguard.
Okay, but let's talk about the sex-specific advice part. What do we do with it without becoming gross?
I liked the some traits are universal bit. Kindness and intelligence get rewarded across genders.
But status preferred by women and beauty and youth preferred by men is where people get defensive.
Defensive, or they try to reframe it as women are shallow and men are pigs.
As if evolutionary pressures only produce villains. Nice try, humanity.
And the compensatory mating idea, your basket of traits, was honestly the best antidote to fatalism.
Because if you can improve assertiveness or charisma, you're not doomed by one dimension.
So even if height is fixed, you can shift other factors: fitness, social presence, competence.
And he argued women's mating value trends down with age while men's tends to go up. Again, controversial.
Yeah, but the tall woman problem logic is pretty specific and interesting.
It's basically constraint stacking. Age shrinks pool plus height, preference plus education overlap.
Translation: your preferences combine into a narrower search space than you thought.
Still, I'd want more data on how universal these trends are across cultures and cohorts.
Which brings us to the masculinity discussion, approaching boldness, theory of mind.
Yeah, the self-awareness villain was the real villain, not some abstract ideology monster.
I buy the idea that approach probability gets distorted when people don't model the other person's mind.
That's theory of mind in a nutshell, predicting comfort, timing, cues, boundaries.
And when you don't do it, you end up as the guy who lectures for 25 minutes while someone shuffles away.
Exactly. It's the social equivalent of walking into traffic because you assumed visibility.
The beautiful woman video angle, men approaching in bursts, showed an asymmetry in lived experience.
And the harsh part is she might comply in her head, but she feels threatened in her body.
So the moral pivot is empathy. Even if probability is low, impact can be high.
If you're aiming for 0.001 success, you still shouldn't roll the dice if the other person feels unsafe.
That's where modulation comes in. Right time, right place, right measure, not just attempt.
But modulation can sound like be subtle. People will weaponize that too.
True. Someone will hear it and turn it into how to flirt without consequences.
So you have to anchor it in consent and agency, not just optimal behavior theory.
And that ties to the overconfidence bias example. Only the positive encounters speak up.
90% of professors think they're above average. We live in a feedback-skewed fantasy land.
The lesson is humility. Build mechanisms to see the negative signals, not just compliments.
That's basically the evolutionary humility he kept talking about. Truth is provisional. Ideology isn't a method.
And we're circling back to the core rule. Explain behavior, but don't cache the explanation into permission.
Okay, the explain but don't endorse rule, this is the whole fire break.
Yeah, but people love burning that fire break and calling it relatable science.
The minute you say evolution, someone files it under permission.
Permission for what, though? Cheating, misogyny, or just being a mess, socially?
All of the above, honestly, and the toolkit becomes a weapon for them.
That toolkit part is interesting. Mate desirability score sounds like a spreadsheet for humans.
A romantic relationship with an HR department inside your skull.
And the assortative mating idea, birds of a feather, but the feather value updates.
I like the divergence predicts stress framing, but it feels testable and messy.
Messy is fine. Pseudoscience is when it's testable in vibes only.
Exactly. He keeps stressing provisional truth, but the outrage machine doesn't.
Outrage wants certainty. Science brings footnotes and humility.
Speaking of certainty, his claim that men want variety more, how confident are we?
Confident enough to be a pattern, but not enough to turn it into destiny.
Right, because individuals aren't species averages and couples aren't lab rats.
The twist I liked is that women also have variety desires, just with different situational pressures.
Maximally fertile is the phrase that makes people clutch pearls instantly.
Pearls are basically the social version of forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge, but for flirting and hormones, not for calculus of paternity uncertainty.
The paternity uncertainty concept is one of those explanations that sounds cold, but it's explanatory.
I'm with you, but I still worry people use it to excuse ugly behavior.
Yeah, I'm violent because biology is the oldest scam.
And the doctor studies cancer analogy, good academically, dangerous emotionally.
Because you can study harm without endorsing it, but viewers hear harm hotline.
This is where consent and agency anchors matter, like we said earlier.
Let's connect that to the boldness stuff. What happens when social norms punish approach?
The idea is self-awareness collapses. Men optimize for maybe 0.01, not risk to her.
That's probability arithmetic with zero empathy. Classic theory of mind failure.
Theory of mind is like emotional radar, and some people are walking without it.
Or they have it, but they miscalibrate it to their own fantasy outcome.
Which loops back to overconfidence bias. Only the winners say hi to you.
The negative signals don't reinforce you problem is real in dating and careers.
But then what's the fix? Social training or internal discipline?
Both, but the internal part is harder because it requires admitting you might be wrong in the moment.
That's the evolutionary humility again. Truth is provisional. Your judgment isn't infallible.
An ideology fights that humility. People don't want auto-correct, they want applause.
Autocorrect is the enemy of tribal narratives.
What did you think about the everything in moderation argument applied to approach behavior?
It's a useful metaphor, but moderation can be used as a fig leaf too.
Like, I wasn't harassing, I was moderately inappropriate.
Exactly. So the real question becomes, is there consent, responsiveness, and respect for cues?
Yes, if she's signaling discomfort, the optimal move is to stop, not to pivot your lines.
Because the utility function isn't just your mating goal. It includes her safety and autonomy.
And that's where evolution explanations should be married to ethics, not used to override them.
Otherwise, you get the explanation as permission trap again.
Now, porn as acceptation, this is the part people either love or hate instantly.
I actually like that distinction. Porn doesn't evolve with us. It piggybacks on older preferences.
It's like giving an addiction lever to the brains that already hunts cues for reproduction and novelty.
But the research is unclear. Moderation line will get abused too.
Moderation is everyone's favorite word until it applies to their own coping mechanism.
True, some people can modulate, others are basically firing a cannon at a mosquito.
How would you translate all this into something practical without turning it into a dating manual?
Use it like a diagnostic, not a strategy guide. Ask, what cues am I ignoring?
And ask, what is the other person's theory of mind reading right now?
Are you picking up my cues? That should be default human software.
The dark part is that selective reinforcement means people keep doing the behavior even when it fails socially.
Yep, they only get feedback from the ones who don't feel unsafe, and that skews everything.
So the evolution toolkit should include humility and consent checks, not just mating math.
Otherwise, it becomes evolutionary trivia with moral duct tape.
We can do better than duct tape. Next, we'll talk how this all gets people in trouble.
And how ideology hijacks the science so fast it feels like magic.
All right, let's land this episode before we spiral into the human brain's worst group project.
Fair. Episode 1 ends. Episode 2 better bring receipts, not just theories.
Exactly, because the whole point is to keep the explanation honest and the behavior ethical.
Thanks for hanging with us. See you in the next one.
Episode 2. We dive deeper into the forbidden knowledge backlash and what a real toolkit should replace it with.
Okay, the cheating thing is interesting, but the ethics framing is what scares me.
Yeah, because evolutionary explanation can get mistaken for moral permission.
People hear men desire variety, and suddenly it's a courtroom drama.
But his core point is, desire exists. Justification isn't the same thing.
How do you even teach that line cleanly without sounding like a villain?
You probably don't, because the internet is allergic to nuance.
True, we're basically running on vibes, not theory of mind.
Theory of mind is the best segue here. Self-awareness is the real missing ingredient.
He was basically saying people misread the situation because they can't simulate others' minds.
And then it turns into social violations, like the lecture for 25 minutes problem.
Dude, yes, some men think their thoughts are community service.
I have a point, therefore you have consent. Terrible logic.
The part about modulating behavior, right place, right time, that's actually practical.
Aristotle's inverted U, but make it awkward dating etiquette.
So the evolutionary angle doesn't replace empathy, it's supposed to sharpen it.
I buy the sharpened part, but I'm cautious about claims that sound too universal.
Universal is the word that gets you canceled or gets you sued.
Like when he says monogamy isn't natural. People will fight the definition before the evidence.
And he clarifies it. Institutionally, monogamy exists in most cultures, but behaviorally, humans aren't monogamy robots.
That's the nuance. Cultural rules can exist while evolved incentives still tug elsewhere.
Incentives with bad manners, basically.
The mate desirability score framework is a toolkit people can actually use.
Do you think scores are helpful or dehumanizing?
Helpful for structure, dehumanizing if you treat people like Xbox stats.
Like your charisma stat is low, uninstall and reinstall.
Still, the compensatory idea matters. You can't change height, but you can change assertiveness, ambition, presentation.
That's the part I like. He's basically saying interventions exist, not doom exists.
And it links to age and match stability, the idea that divergence in mate value predicts stress.
But predicting divorce from diverging scores sounds testable, but also ripe for cherry-picking.
Exactly. Correlation doesn't mean fate, and fate is where people spiral.
And then you get the tall woman paradox and all the pool-shrinking arguments.
The 1 out of 720 stat is spicy, but I want the dataset, not the vibes.
I mean, even if the exact number is off, the direction, constraint stacking still makes sense.
And it turns into a masculinity question. What happens when approaching becomes risky, socially and legally?
He's arguing men are less bold because ambiguity increases. Compliments might be read as harassment.
Which is valid, but I hate how fear becomes an excuse to say nothing ever.
Right, like sorry I didn't approach, the regulatory environment was too complex.
Yet he brings it back to self-awareness. Read cues, accept no quickly, don't trap someone in your lecture.
That modulation theme also shows up in his video story. Men approaching a woman who's walking alone, vulnerable context.
The probability might be 0.01 to them, but the cost to her comfort is huge.
Evolution doesn't override consent, bro.
That sentence alone should be on a billboard.
Billboard is the only thing people will read these days.
Where I get stuck is his forbidden knowledge, an academics cancel you narrative.
I'm torn. Sometimes institutions suppress taboo topics. Sometimes they just protect people from junk methods.
Exactly. Science should be unbiased, but bias can enter through measurement, sampling, interpretation.
Unbiased like, trust me, bro, my drawer stays shut.
Keep the sexist results in the drawer is the kind of claim that demands receipts.
But I did like the hygiene example. Semmelweis, people laughed. Then it turned out he was right.
That's the classic pattern. Contrarian evidence gets rejected until it can't be ignored.
Still, we should also remember the reverse. Contrarianism can be wrong confidently too.
Like pseudoscience wearing a lab coat.
So what would a toolkit look like that's robust against both errors?
Here's my version. Separate description from prescription, and separate group-level averages from individual ethics.
And teach people, what would I do if I'm wrong, not just here's the story that sounds right.
Also, include consent and context as non-negotiable parameters.
Exactly. Otherwise, evolution becomes moral duct tape again.
We can do better than duct tape, behavioral honesty with ethical guardrails.
Okay, I'm officially pro-toolkit and anti-misuse.
And I want the discussion to keep turning into actionable self-awareness, not excuse-making.
Because the real danger isn't understanding humans, it's acting like understanding absolves you.
Boom! That's the whole thesis in one line.
All right, let's wrap it up before we start writing apology letters to our future partners.
Deal. Episode 2, better bring receipts on the forbidden knowledge backlash and what we replace it with.
Thanks for hanging out. Real conversation, no moral duct tape.
And we'll see you next time. Episode 2 is where the ideological fire starts to crackle.
Next episode, how backlash hijacks research and why a real toolkit has to be ethical first.
Coming up, Episode 2, forbidden knowledge arguments, but with the practical framework we actually need.